Hello, everyone. I'm Victoria Day Najjar, author of Tampa Bay Runaway. Welcome. I'm here today to review Kristin Hannah's The Great Alone. Now, we've talked about several of her other books before, and this one meets all the criteria. It's just as exciting. The setting is a Kenai Peninsula in Alaska, and it's commonly called the last frontier. And there's good reason for this. When you read the novel, you see what the people who are living there are up against with the brutal cold and the need for food and the long, dark days that are endless months of it. But they love their Alaska. They love living off the grid, but they know how to live off the grid, and what they're doing to survive is remarkable. The story centers on the Albright family. The mom is Cora. The father is Ernst, a Vietnam veteran who is very troubled. And they have one child, a little 13-year-old named Lenny. Now, a friend of Ernst leaves him a cabin in this Kenai Peninsula. Impulsively, he moves his wife and daughter there. And they have nothing anyway. They're very poor, and they move to this tiny, tiny cabin in a remote town. And none of them have any experience in living. They call that off the grid. You know, they're not in a city or near a big city at all. So as the story progresses, the family has two main stressors, especially Cora, because her husband is unstable. His PT, his post-traumatic stress disorder, has caused within him, really, you'd have to say, he is irrational. And he is a very jealous man also, as there is another family, the Walkers, who live by and seek to help the family. And Tom Walker is the main character, an interesting character in the story, and his son and Lenny become a couple. And they have their trials, which I will not spoil for you, but it's beyond belief what Hannah has happened for this couple. And the survival mentally and physically is incredible. It isn't ever boring. Not one page could be removed. It's that good a story. And where the story also shines is with the research Kristin Hannah does, and everything. You learn a lot. You learn about the flora and fauna. And she writes these incredible passages about the sheer beauty of Alaska. And I've been there, and it is beautiful. The endless waterways and mountains and trees. It's a stunning state of our country. And I thought, how did she do this? I wondered if she watched videos or something. But actually, Kristin Hannah lived there. When she was in her teens, the father moved the family there for a few years. So she saw and learned to love Alaska firsthand. Now, the subject of the protagonist being isolated, we have to talk about that. They're in this little cabin. It's, of course, not insulated. It's not much. And the family is freezing and starving. And there's a wonderful secondary character called Large Marge. Now, Large Marge is emphatically capable and a caretaker and saves the family from starvation. And she understands that Cora is being beaten by Ernst. He goes into these rages. He doesn't even know what he's doing half the time. He breaks furniture. He's a dangerous man. And Large Marge visits frequently to ensure that Cora will not be killed by him. So we've got the angst of the brutal cold that the family is ill prepared for. And then we've got actually, I hate to say it, but the killer in the house. So that is what this story hinges on, and how everything turns out. It slowly moves toward betterment. And so it's not a depressing book. It's an engaging, thrilling book. I wanted to tell you also, I have been to Alaska, and it was like going to Europe for me. It was like a different country. It was so thrilling. And I recently went to Seattle, and on the plane ride out on Air Alaska, who should be sitting next to me but a dog musher who lives on a glacier. And her name is, I don't think she'll mind, she's wonderful, Caitlin Kish. And we talked, and I was fascinated with her stories of Alaska and even what the dogs eat, which is, if you want to know, they have tubes of frozen ground beef, and they defrost those, but they have lots of frozen salmon. You know that Alaska's loaded with delicious salmon, and they mix it with kibbles, and that keeps the dog strong and healthy. And in winter, when she's mushing, it's 40 below. And I saw the pictures, which were described by Kristen Hanna, and how people had to bundle from that type of wind. It's bone chilling. I mean, I don't think people even can feel the skin on their body most of the time. It's so cold. And so she wore double everything, and it was just fascinating. And apparently at Christmas time, there are so many tourists there to take the ride on the sleigh, and the mushers work 15-hour days. They barely get to eat or sleep. There's so many runs of the dogs. And speaking of the runs, Caitlin explained to me that when it's an uphill run, the musher jumps off the sled, the dog sled, and runs with the dog. So I just thought I could picture her doing that. It was so shout out to Caitlin right here and now. I hope you read this book, The Great Alone, and I hope you get to Alaska someday to see the sheer beauty, and you won't have to be in a cabin and all like that. And, you know, one thing I wanted to say, Cora was brave, Lenny was brave, and they had good people there. And Ernst, the father, in all fairness to him, he was a victim. He was a victim of the Vietnam War. He previously had been a wonderful person, and the stressors just broke down his mind. It broke down his psyche. And you know, in my novel, Tampa Bay Runaway, I have a Vietnam vet who's actually a hero. His name is Sam. I love Sam. And Sam had a different type of PTSD, where he didn't feel violent toward others, but he was divorced from society and lived in a camp with other vets. They just felt better living over there. You could call that off the grid where they lived. And his terror from the war was the interruptive memories, like movies in his mind of the war kept jolting his mind and breaking his sleep. So when we read about Ernst, I think give him a little bit of a break. He had been broken by war. And so thank you for listening. I hope you read the book and enjoy the book, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and please hit like and follow if you did, and take care. Take care.